Hey mathematicians, we are going to be looking at data today, and more specifically, we are going to be looking at box and whisker plots. So, what is a box and whisker plot? Well, it's a way to show data in this case, 5 different points. There's a lot here, and we're going to go over it all. So the beginning of this is that this has started with a set of data, and we will look at taking a set of data and turning it into a box and whisker plot, sometimes called just a box plot. But we're going to start here with one that's graphed and pull the data out of it. So there are always things that we can gather from a box and whisker plot. And the first thing that we're going to be able to get after is what is the lowest number or the minimum of the data, sometimes called the lower extreme. And it looks like here, and sometimes this isn't exact science when we're pulling numbers off of a box and whisker plot. There's a little bit of estimation sometimes when things don't line up exactly, but in this case, we'll be able to see it pretty clearly, but that isn't always the case. So our minimum number was a 0. That was the smallest number in the listed data. So something came in at 0. And then the next number is, and that's represented right here. And then the next number is represented right here with the 4, and that's called our lower quartile. And the word quartile is used because, as you know, quarter, these are things that are divided into 4s. So this data is divided into 4 sections. Each one of these sections represents 1/4 or 25% of the data. So that's something that we know when we're looking at a box and whisker plot, is that each one of these represents 1/4 of the data. Now, each section is not going to be the same size necessarily, because 1/4 of the data may represent more of a spread of numbers, and some quarters of data may represent a more narrow spread of numbers. But we know that each section represents 1/4 of the data, and that's why we use the term quartile. So again, from 0 to 4, because that's our lower quartile, that is 1/4 of our data sitting in there from the number 0 to the number 4. And then the next thing we have is the median, and we remember how to get the median. That is the middle number when our data is in order. And in this case, our median is sitting right at 10. So we know that was the middle number in our data. Or if it wasn't the middle number, we arrived at a middle number by averaging the 2 middle numbers. And then we have an upper quartile here. And the upper quartile is 20. And then, of course, we have our final number here that's represented clearly, and that is the maximum, sometimes called the upper extreme, and that is 25. We also can name our quartiles too. And let me get rid of this, and we will do that. So we can name quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3. So this place here is considered quartile 1, meaning that's the first quarter of the data from here to here. This is our median. It's our median. This is our lower quartile, and that's considered quartile 2. So that's all the data sitting from here to here. And then our upper quartile here is considered quartile 3, and that's all the data sitting from here to here. And of course, this would be the 4th quartile of data here. So there is another couple of things that we can gather from this, and that is the range of data, which would work just like the range of any data set. We know that the data goes from 0 all the way to 25, so the range of data is 25. But there is another important range when it comes to these box and whisker plots, and that is called an interquartile range. And that range is not the full range of data, it is the range of data from the lower quartile to the upper quartile, and it's just a difference. So we go from 20 to 4 or 4 to 20, and we know that the absolute difference in those numbers would be 16. So our interquartile range is 16, and that's an important number too, to know what that middle 50%, because this is 25%, this is 25%, it's important to know what that middle 50% is. So that's another number that we look at. So I have another box and whisker here just to show you that sometimes they are represented vertically. You will see them horizontally, I would say 90% of the time, but you will see them vertically sometimes. And occasionally, these are good for comparing data. So you might see them stacked up one over the other. So you would have your number line here, you would have um, one box and whisker plot here, and then you might have, get this stuff out of the way here, you might have another one stacked over that that has different data, perhaps being reflected. Maybe that data looks more like this, but you might have them stacked up, whereas you're comparing different sets of data. So what we could compare with these two is that the medians are very close, but that's about where it ends. The upper quartiles are very far away, the lower quartiles, the minimum, the maximum. The range of data is much more narrow here. The interquartile range is much more narrow here. So there are things that we can gather, but this is a good way to compare data of certain types. So now we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to start with data, and then we're going to form our box and whisker plot. So the first thing to do is to order our data, because of the fact that we are going to be trying to find median, and we always order our data when we're going to find a median, because that is a middle number. So as you know, I like to check off, underline, highlight my data as I go through and use it. So that's what I will be doing here. So I'm going to look for my lowest number as I scan through. Looks like we have 6 first, and then we have an 8, a 9, an 11, a 14, and you just hope that you don't miss one and you have to start over. A 16, a 17, and a 21. Oh, I did it. I missed the 18. Hold on. Let's do that first. 18, then this 21, and then there's one more 21. Again, always strike your data, highlight it, underline it, cross it out, do something, because it's very easy to miss a number, and missing one number can throw everything off. Okay, so now my numbers are in order. My data is in order. So now I can immediately pick off some information. I know that this is my minimum number, or my lower extreme. Right off the bat, I know that 21 is my upper extreme, or my maximum. Okay, I know my range is 15. And that's about all I can pick off really easily. But now I'm going to take a look to see if I can figure out my median here. So I want to see how many pieces of data I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have an even number. I'm not going to have a true middle. on this, I'm going to have to arrive at my median. So I'm going to count into the middle here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the middle. And so I'm going to have to use these two numbers to get my median. So this is easy enough. I don't even have to do the math. What's exactly in the middle of a 14 and a 16? That would be a 15. So my median is 15. Now, to get the two quartiles, that is a different job. So we're going to do that next. Now, this is an important part of this. The median is never used, whether it's on the line or it's not on the line of data. You don't use the median when you count off your quartile. And the way you get your quartile is you are now finding the median of just half of your data. So I'm just going to find the median of this data, and I'm going to find the median of this data. Notice that I'm not including that 15. Whether it was part of the line or it's off the line, I'm not including it. I'm boxing it out and not including it. So now we're going to see about the middle of here. And then I have 1, 2, 1, 2. And it looks like I have a middle right here. And that becomes my lower quartile. I do the same here. 1, 2, 1, 2. And this becomes the middle of this half of my data, or my upper quartile. Now, the next data point here is interquartile range, and that is the range between your two quartiles. Now, you remember to get our range of data, we went from our minimum to our maximum, and we found the difference, and it was 15. Now we go from our upper extreme to our lower extreme, and we find the range there, and that is 9. And that is called an interquartile range, meaning from quartile to quartile. All right, we have all of our data points now. Now we can start graphing. I think I'm going to try to graph this with a highlighter just to make it a little more obvious. Okay, so now box and whisker plots get graphed above the number line. We're always asking students to graph on the number line, graph on the number line. This is one of those times where you graph above the number line. So we're going to start by making our points here. So this is going to be our minimum at 6. Our lower quartile, and I'm just making dots for each of these at this point, is 9. Our median was 15. Our upper quartile was 18. Our max is 21, or our upper extreme. Okay, so now I just have a series of points here, and we're going to create our box and whisker from here. So we first start by bringing in the whiskers. They come from the outer minimum to the lower quartile, and in from the max to the upper quartile. And then we're going to draw lines here at the median and at that upper quartile. And that's where our box, so to speak, comes from. And there you go. So that's what it looks like. That box and whisker represents this set of data. And again, we can go through. This is our minimum or our lower extreme. This is our lower quartile. This is our median. This is our upper quartile. And this is our maximum or our upper extreme. We know if we were to go from here to here, that range is going to be the IQR, interquartile range. That's 9. If we go from here to here, that's our full range, and that's 15. In addition to this line represents quartile 1. This line represents quartile 2, and this line represents quartile 3. It's a lot of information. We've got those graphed. It's a lot of information that you can gather from one box and whisker plot. All right, let's go ahead, and I'm going to have you stop the video in just a moment and try to work through this box and whisker, getting these values, graphing them, and then also including your Q1, Q2, Q3 in your graph, and then start the video again, and I will go through it with you, and you will be able to check and correct. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you have a beautiful box and whisker all done. And here we go. We're going to get this data ordered, which is our first point of business. So I see a 9 here, a 10, an 11, a 12, an 18. Oops, we have another 18 here. We have a 18 as a mode in this data, and a 24. All right, I'm going to count up my data and see what we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data. That's nice. Every time it's an odd number of data points, we're going to have that median right on our number line. But there are some things we can get right away. We have a minimum here. Let's mark that in. We have a maximum here. We can see the full range of the data is 15 from 9 to 24. And then we can pick out our median. So getting in here 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to box out that number because that is our median, and we are not going to use it as we look for the median of the two halves. I'm boxing it out because it never gets used, whether it's on the line or not on the line. All right, so this is easy from here because we only have 3 pieces of data. This must be my middle or median of this side, my lower quartile. This is my middle or median of this side of my data, or my upper quartile. And my interquartile range is from here to here, and that is going to be 8. Right, hopefully you were able to do that successfully. Again, just be very careful about getting all your data in the set. If you miss a piece of data, like you know, everything gets thrown off and you can't get to what you need. All right, so let's start graphing. We have a 9 to start out with, and then a 10. That's really tight. That quarter of data has very little range to it. Then we have a 12 for our median, and then an 18 is a little more spread out, and then our max is 24. Made that a little low for the rest of this. Okay, so this is going to be a little squishy on one end, but here's my first whisker here. Here's my second whisker here. These lines form my quote unquote box. Looks more like a rectangle to me. And there we have it. And that's our box and whisker for this set of data. We also should go ahead and label, this is our Q1, our Q2, and our Q3. Again, that represents that first quarter of data stops there, second quarter of data stops there, third quarter of data stops there, and the fourth quarter of data stops here, obviously, but we usually just label the 3 in between. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. So we have one more problem here. for you to try completely on your own. I will not be going over this one, but extra practice never hurts. So thanks so much for joining us today. And I appreciate you advocating for yourself and watching this video and practicing your math skills. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.